Yes, so here's the second part of the Dubai story. So, yes, I had a foreboding, but not before I had some more fun during the time there. We had some fun with Tariq. I'd, I've forgotten his name, but he's one of the royal family now in Sharjah. Now, he was at that time, closely related, I think, to the Sheik. But, I just knew him as a normal teenager and nothing special really. But being the nephew of the Sheikh, we in the careers department had to find him a university to go to. Now, when I say we, I mean as in the careers department. One day, a very strange thing happened. I suddenly found myself reinstated in my role in the careers department by the drip as the main man. I don't quite know what happened to my boss on that day. I'm beginning to smell a rat. I often think that the boss managed to disappear for that day for some reason. He didn't want to do this job that I was given to do. Anyway, here's the job that I was given to do. Just for one day, I was again made the head of department. It transpired that the Sheikh himself was coming to the flashy Rashid school for boys to inquire about a university for his son. The drip quite sensibly didn't want to talk to the Sheikh himself in case he said something wrong, and he needed someone to talk to the Sheikh, and I don't think my head of department wanted to be there either. So I was the fall guy, and would take the fall if the Sheikh wasn't satisfied with the performance of the careers department. Anyway, my first reaction was to reach for my old friend, the Times educational supplement, as I believed I was being set up by the drip for a fall. Anyway, yes, as I said, my my boss, the one who took over from me unofficially, guess where he was instead of being there? He was actually in Timbuktu, of all places, for the duration of the interview on special leave. And that's true. I'm not exaggerating. Anyway, the plot thickens. I knew I was being set up because my head of department had quickly established himself as the drip's stooge. Anyway, I was required to represent the careers department with all the other senior administration present, along with the drip himself, of course. And when I arrived into the room, last, of course, as the lowest of status, they were all seated in the drip's office, including the Sheikh himself, with his entourage of advisors. I was asked to sit down, and then the drip made one of his long, rambling speeches, which amounted to asking me which university I thought Tariq should go to. Well, I took a deep breath and in a measured, lowered tone assured His Majesty that I didn't think it was likely that Tariq would make it into Oxford and Cambridge, but I thought there were several places calling themselves universities in London which would be only too happy to take his money and give his nephew a degree. I also suggested that he might consider going to an Arab university. I reeled off a few names, including among them Cairo University. At this, His Highness seemed perplexed as he stopped fingering his beads and muttered something in Arabic to his interpreter or bodyguard or advisor, whoever it was, who then said to me, "His Highness does not want Tariq to go to Cairo University, because the car park is not big enough. Yes, I'll just pause there to let you laugh. Now, I didn't laugh, I can tell you. The atmosphere was so thick in that room, laughing was the last thing I wanted to do. There was an atmosphere of utmost gravity, solemnity. No one in the room looked at anyone else. Everyone, including myself, I think, stared directly at the floor and said nothing. I think the drip finally did something he was really good at, saying nothing, and taking a very long time to say it, so that by the time he had finished, everybody had forgotten what we were all talking about, including His Highness. The bodyguards were dozing by this time. An embarrassing moment had been successfully negotiated by the drip. Turning to our personal life, without doubt the most memorable day in Dubai was the 16th of December 1987. I was a moderately heavy smoker in those days, and one day young Roger, my eldest, who was about 33 months, asked me one of his first, but by no means his last, very direct questions. Now, of course, all children of this age ask questions, but my child wasn't just any child. He was my firstborn, and I was going to be the perfect dad. And I was determined I would be the first man in the history of the human race to answer all questions from my children, honestly, openly, and comprehensively. In this way, my son would grow up to be a genius, and earn lots of money, and have a trouble-free life, unlike his dad. So I had been answering all questions heretofore with long, detailed, and multifaceted answers, being very careful to present all sides of the argument to the inquiring mind of young Roger. He was going to learn and maybe even come to know everything, very much like his dad. So his question was, as he pointed up towards the cigarette in my lips, "Daddy, why are you doing that?" A simple question, but devastating, of course, because I could not give him an honest answer that made any sense. I quickly thought of things like, "It helps me relax," which was honest, but not comprehensive, because it omitted to inform him that I was killing myself rapidly and would probably be dead by the time he reached university. So I took the box of Dunhills and went down to the beach in my jeep at Jumeirah and threw them in the sea, and never smoked a cigarette again. I had no concern for the environment in those days. I will always be very grateful to Roger for asking this most sensible of questions. If he had said, "What are you doing, Dad?" instead of "Why are you doing it?" I might have been able to say, "Well, I'm smoking," and I would no doubt be dead by now. The first year socially was an outstanding success in Dubai. Maria was very happy. Roger was 3. There was a comfortable apartment to live in. The weather was fine. We made friends easily. The most notable of these was Len. I remember meeting Len for the first time at school. He was the lab assistant who dealt with the physics side of things rather than the biology side of things. Strange as it may seem now, Len, on the very first day we met, looked rather serious, and I thought that maybe he was not going to be the sort of person that would become my friend. But how wrong I was. My usually reliable intuition was wrong on this occasion. Len and I soon became firm friends, and I really don't think the experience of Dubai would have been memorable at all if it hadn't been for Len. I used to take him to work every day. What a great way it was to start work with a chat with a good friend like Len. And we used to finish it on the way home. I used to take him home as well most days. He didn't like to drive. Len had been the head of a technical team in the science department at Essex University for many years, so he was a very experienced lab assistant. He could fix anything, anywhere, and was willing to do it at any time. I miss him so much, terribly. At the age of 57, I believe, quite suddenly, he told me one day that he wanted to, after he sort of semi-retired, I think, from Essex, he decided he wanted to see a bit more of the world before he retired. And he went to Crown Agents in London and they offered him a position in Libya. But on arrival, they confiscated his passport and he found himself trapped in Libya for a whole year against his will. Now that is a story, a true story, and I've never heard the full details. But of course, Len being Len, he made the very best of it, and I think he made some very good friends when he was there. But what a terrible experience. Undaunted, though, Len applied again through Crown Agents and was appointed to the Rashid School in Dubai. Len was paid less than all of us lofty teachers, but in my opinion was worth 50 of us all rolled together. He wore the white coat of the technician, and so the British teachers tended to ignore him on the basis of his inferior status. None of this worried Len, as he was a humble man, easygoing and easy to please. He was also extremely competent at his job. I don't know what he saw in me that made him think I would be worthy to be his friend. I don't know and I don't care. I'm just so grateful for the friendship. After getting accustomed to the novelty of Arab culture, we enjoyed ourselves in the desert dune bashing in our jeep. We also explored many of the wadis in the Emirates. The beaches were wonderful, and we joined the Nature Society and we went on trips. We camped many times, both in the desert and on the beaches. We made good friends from all over the world, as did Maria. However, the year was soured a little for me at the end by the situation at the school. It just seemed to go from bad to worse, as Catherine the elephant ruthlessly fought with and tried to get rid of any head of department which she had not appointed. We went home for the summer to Ireland. I elected to stay in a little house quite close to Mum and Dad, and I think that was a very good decision, although they didn't like it. It just gave us a bit of breathing space because we had Roger at that time, and so it was great. It was great that we had that little bit of space. Mum and Dad also came to visit us in Dubai, and they enjoyed it so much. We took them dune bashing in the desert and many times to the beach, and they loved the barbecues. And of course, they had a wonderful time with the children.